understand the law of assumption, and we are going to do this by decoding Neville Goddard's human design chart. So if you do not know who Neville Goddard is, he was a spiritual thought leader and essentially one of the founding fathers of the law of assumption, essentially. So I have been doing conscious manifestation for a very long time. However, I didn't come across the law of assumption until I want to say 2020. That's when I first found out about Neville Goddard and the law of assumption, which was also the year, or very close to the time when I found human design. And Neville Goddard manifested obviously lots of things throughout his lifetime, and I've always kind of struggled with it a little bit, and that always bugged me. I've got it now, but prior to really locking it in and understanding it, it bugged me. I was like, why is this so fucking easy for him? It made me mad. So I got the idea, why not look at his human design chart, see what's going on in there? So that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna talk about 6 areas of his human design chart. Basically the 6 areas that I look at when I'm, crafting a manifestation plan for someone based on their human design. So we're gonna look at all 6, and I'm going to give my personal opinion as a human design expert and someone who practices the law of assumption. So, hello, if you do not know me, my name is Ebony. I'm a human design reader, expert, and coach, and on this channel, we learn about gene keys and human design in order to reclaim our power, prioritize our pleasure, and create the freedom-filled life that we desire. So, let's start, and disclaimer, I'm not gonna be showing his chart, okay? If you've been around me for a while now, you will know I do not show people's charts publicly. I don't do that. I think it's a huge invasion of privacy to publicly put someone's human design chart on social, like that. No, no, I'm not gonna do it. But we're gonna talk about it, so, Let's start off with the centers. Number 1, Neville Goddard had a defined solar plexus. So what that says to me in terms of, manifestation law of assumption is that feeling came very easily to him, which makes so much sense because his whole thing was feeling as a secret, right? Feeling as if your desire is already happened, right? Feeling as though you are that person. You are the person who is experiencing your desire right now. Feeling was big for him, and we're gonna see this come up in multiple areas throughout his chart. He has a defined solar plexus. He had an emotional wave. Feeling came to him very, very, very easily. So it makes a lot of sense as to why feeling is the secret, was in fact the secret for him. So I say this to say, if feeling is not the secret for you, that is fine, okay? Feeling can be very powerful for a lot of people, but that doesn't mean that it is the magic pill for every single person. Neville Goddard had a defined solar plexus. That makes a lot of sense for him, that feeling was the secret. But that doesn't mean that if you don't feel it real, then you're doing something wrong. And that's really the reason why I wanted to do this video, because I want you to see we're all different, which means the way that we manifest consciously is going to be different. So if feeling it real don't work for you, that is fine. Okay, cool. So now moving on, he had an undefined Ajna center. Now, when you have an undefined center, it means that you take in information from that center, from the external world. So he probably struggled a lot with intrusive thoughts, right? He took in ideas and opinions from the people around him because he was completely open Ajna center, right? So that was probably an area where he really struggled. But he didn't let that get him down. He did not let that affect him. He focused on the feeling because, again, that was what came easily to him. So he focused on the feeling, and I'm sure whenever an intrusive thought came in, he was like, no, I am the person who already has this thing, so I'm not gonna worry about that, right? And as someone who has a defined Ajna center, that's not personally how I guess it kind of is, but I do it a little bit differently because I don't have a defined solar plexus center. But for him, is like, that's not real. I feel as though I am the person who has my desires, so that thought really doesn't fucking matter, And that worked out well for him. Now, I don't know him personally, but I'm assuming that's probably what he did, right? In the same vein, he also had a completely open spleen. He had a completely open ajna and a completely open spleen, which means his thoughts were also probably very easily affected by his physiology. A lot of people don't understand that there is a mind-body connection, right? And we receive 80% more affective data than we do effective data. So affective data is primal. It's body-based, it's nervous system, all of that. And then there's effective data, which is, mental, like the cortex, things like that. We receive more information from our body, from our nervous system, from our senses than we do from our brains. So it could be possible that his thoughts, right, and his feelings were affected by how he carried himself, how he, if he, stood up straight, if his nervous system was regulated, right? Those kind of things affect people differently based on, if you have an undefined spleen or not. Like for me, I have a defined spleen. So even though those things might affect me, it may not affect me as much as someone like Neville who had a completely open spleen, right? So for him, it probably was in his best interest to, stand like the person who already has his desire, right? Take care of his body in a way that the person who has his desire would. That doesn't mean he did, doesn't mean you have to, but if he did, it was probably very helpful. Yeah? Okay. Like I said, I'm just, this is my personal knowledge of human design, as well as my personal perspective of the law of assumption. This is not law. This is not the only way to manifest. No. We're just breaking this down, having a little kiki, breaking some shit down. That's all. So, moving on to his variables. Neville had 3 right-facing arrows and 1 left-facing arrow, which, if you are not familiar with variables, isn't going to make any sense, but it's okay. I'm going to break it down. So, the first thing that we need to understand, and I think this is a really, really big one, because this is what helped me when I first saw his chart, and it helped me relax a little bit, is that Neville had a passive brain system, which means he was a passive learner. He was very easily able to take in information quickly and without, I don't want to say without a whole bunch of repetition, but probably with less repetition than someone who is more of a left brain system person like me. So for me, with a left brain system, I am an active learner, right? Repetition for me is key. For Neville, he might have required less repetition because the way his brain takes in information, the way he communicates with his subconscious, it's more passive. He is more easily able to take in information, which means he may more easily impress his subconscious mind with the beliefs and assumptions that he wanted to have. So I say this to say, if you are currently consciously trying to manifest something and you have been comparing yourself to other people, especially if you have been comparing yourself to Neville, this is one of the reasons why it's not a great idea to do that. Because again, because he had more of a passive learning style, it might have been a little bit easier for him to take in that information and impress his subconscious than if you have a, more active brain system like me. Now you're comparing apples and oranges, and we don't want to do that, obviously. So this video is really just to remind you, we all manifest differently. There is no right way. There is no wrong way. There is no, I'm doing this wrong because it's taking more time. I'm doing this wrong. I did this perfect because it took less time. None of that. We all do what works for us, and whatever time it takes for us to do the things we need to do to get what we want, that's the time it takes. And that is fine, right? Part of law of assumption is learning to be patient and persist, even through the impatience, right? So I didn't, this long rant, but I really want you to understand the purpose of this video. It's to remind you, you are not doing anything wrong. You don't need to compare yourself to other people. Just focus on you. You got this, I promise. Also, something else about Neville's chart is that he was a low sound determination. Now, people with a low sound determination, the sound in their environment is very important. They need to pretty much block out sound. It needs to be silent. Whenever they're doing their manifestation practices, it has to be silent. For Neville, his technique of choice, from what I understand, aside from revision, he talked a lot about revision, but it was SATs. It was state akin to sleep. It was, going to bed as if you already are the person that you want to be. Now, when you think about it, when you're going to bed, it's quiet, right? Because you're going to bed. Low sound. And then SATs is a passive technique. Well, no. Passive in the fact that your body isn't doing anything. Your mind is active, but your body isn't doing anything, right? So you have a passive technique in a low sound environment. That is perfect for him because he is a passive brain system person with a low sound determination. That works perfectly for him. If you are a more active person with a different determination, SATs might not be the technique for you. And if you're walking around wondering why you've been doing SATs for, a year and you still don't have what you want, it may just be that that technique is not aligned for you. And that is perfectly fine because, again, we can all manifest differently and still get exactly what we want. As long as we are not comparing ourselves or thinking that we're doing something wrong. Because 9 times out of 10, unless you're wavering or completely thinking against your desire or saying that you can't manifest, 9 times out of 10, you're not doing anything wrong, right? So, putting this all into perspective, Neville was doing exactly what he needed to be doing for him. And on your journey, you get to discover what is the best way for you to do it. That might be SATs. Might be scripting, right? It could be affirmations, it could be visualization, right? But I really want you to understand that just because Neville did it this way, it doesn't mean that you have to do it this way because he had a very specific design. It was his design, not yours. Okay? So, again, I'm sorry for the rants, but I really want you to understand you're perfect. Okay, you're perfect. Okay. The last thing, and this should be no surprise. Actually, no, that's a lie. There's one more other thing. He had a feeling cognition. Again, his whole thing was feeling it real, right? He has a feeling cognition. If you didn't see my video on cognition, I'll link it up here. It's a really good watch, right? So watch that after you watch this. Feeling is the way that he prepared his body to receive the things that he was visualizing, right? Feeling the feelings that he would have if he already had that thing. Again, feeling is a secret. Feeling is a secret for him. He has a defined solar plexus and he has the feeling cognition. It makes a lot of sense that feeling was his secret. But again, that doesn't mean that it's yours. Because me, I have an external vision cognition and I have an undefined solar plexus. Feeling it real does not necessarily come natural to me. I can do it. And I do incorporate it a little bit into my manifestation practice because I have a right-facing perspective arrow. But it is not the centerpiece of my manifestation practice because it doesn't come naturally to me. So I don't base my entire manifestation practice on that one thing. For Neville, it makes a lot of sense that he did because there are multiple areas in his chart where feeling was a very big factor for him. So if feeling it real doesn't come easily to you, that is fine. It is fine, it is fine, it is fine. Okay? Now, the last thing that I want to cover about Neville Goddard's chart is his perspective arrow. It is right-facing. The right-facing perspective arrow is, again, a more passive form of manifesting. It is where you're not so much determined about the details of what you want, you're concerned with the feeling. You're concerned with the feeling. This is the third area of Neville Goddard's chart where feeling is the centerpiece. Are we kind of seeing a picture here? The man was a feeler, okay? He was a feeler, which makes so much sense because his whole thing was what? Say it with me, feeling is the secret. Feeling was his secret. Multiple areas of his chart tell us that feeling came very, very easily to him, which makes so much sense. That's why he based his entire manifestation practice around it. That's why he wrote books about it. That's why he made speeches about it. That's why he taught about it, because that's what came easily for him. and you get to take his teachings, take his understanding of the law, and figure out what works best for you. Manifestation is not a one-size-fits-all process. You cannot do it wrong. All you can do is what comes most easily to you, comes most naturally to you, makes you feel the best while you are doing it, and that gets you what the fuck you want in the least amount of time. If that's fantastic. If it's scripting, fabulous. If it's feeling it real, fantastic. But it doesn't have to be. So again, I hope that this gave you some insight, first of all. I hope it reminded you not to compare yourself to anyone else, especially your manifestation journey, because we all have different brains. We all have different ways that feel good for us. We all have different environments that feel good for us that we need to be in. And putting yourself down because someone else's process looks different from yours is not going to push you forward. And I'm all about pushing you forward. So I certainly hope that this was helpful. I hope it gave you the push and the thing that you needed. Please let me know what other kind of manifestation content that you want to see, because I really want to start talking about it more. And like, drop those down in the comments, like anything you want to know about manifestation, law of assumption, because that's law of assumption. I mean, law of attraction, I don't really know a whole lot about it, so I probably won't be very helpful. But law of assumption, go ahead, drop your comments. Manifestation, anything like that, I do have a few manifestation videos up currently, so I can go ahead and link that in a playlist. Other than that, I hope that this was helpful, and I will see you in the next video.